Hello, people of internet land. That's you guys on YouTube, people who follow Ted and I, and also Hayley on Twitch, those in the Cringe Crew Gaming on Discord, and also, I guess, people who are listening on Spotify, if this ever gets to Spotify. I am Traductus.
I'm Ted.
Oh, and I'm Hayley. Hi.
And this is the Cringe Crew Gaming movie podcast, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I got it right this time.
I have movie review podcast, but we're close enough. I'll count it. I'll count it.
I'm waiting for the day that you accidentally called the Bond podcast.
I know it hasn't been posted yet at the time of recording, but I didn't tell Stahlman the name of the podcast and just kind of let him do his intro. And so he didn't know it. He just kind of
said
it.
Film podcast. Ballpark. I was ballpark.
Yeah,
I was ballpark again.
I'll take it.
Third time's a charm. All right. And
there will be many more times.
Obviously, this time is we are reviewing the Christopher Nolan movies because Ted's a huge Christopher Nolan fan, and me being a filthy casual and comparing notes on this, it's like the reverse of the Bond podcast. And like we did with the last podcast, we do have a guest here, with that being Hayley. You might know her from the Casino Royale episode. What? No? Okay.
I was never in that. I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh yeah, I forgot. That was another person by the name of Mike.
that was a season full of guest stars named Mike. I loved it.
But anyway, so this episode we were doing 1999's Memento. At least I think it's 99. I'm so unprepared. It's been a while since we've done this.
Yeah, a whole week. Anyway, we felt it important after recording the last episode. The Bond podcast sort of highlighted Bond movies that all followed a pretty similar plot, so we felt that it was important to interject. Maybe you need to know what's going on in the movie as you watch a podcast about it, right? So this movie was about a guy named Leonard. Basically,
sorry, Memento's from 2000.
Jeez, we fucked up. The plot line of this follows a guy named Leonard. He's got a condition. The condition doesn't allow him to create short-term memory, and he's trying to solve a crime involving his wife. The plotline basically takes you through his method of discovering what happened to his wife, how it happened, and who did it, so that he can provide vengeance for his wife and kill the person who attacked his wife. Comes with a couple twists at the end, obviously, that we'll get to in our likes and dislikes, but that's the basic plot of the film.
Yeah,
a couple.
I'd like to add that it's also in reverse order, but I'm pretty sure we'll get to that with likes and dislikes. But anyway, obviously this is directed by Christopher Nolan. And
silence is good for podcasts.
Yes, it is. And it is based on a script that was pitched by Nolan's brother, Jonathan Nolan, which was called Memento Mori, which no reference probably to the Dead by Daylight thing.
Why would you do this to me?
I was waiting for it.
Oh, what'd you prefer? It's like, we were watching the movie Mementos. It's about Coke and Mentos.
Yes. I would actually prefer that.
But anyway, this was released in September 5th, 2000 in Venice, and March 16th, 2001 in the United States. And it had a budget of $9 million and had a box office return of $40 million.
How about that for an upgrade in budget, dude? Going from 6,000 to multiple millions of dollars.
Right? The plot, well, I'm just gonna basically not the plot, I meant like the cast. I guess we'll think of like just like the main three, because
Sure.
like everybody else is basically kind of extras. We have Guy Pearce as Leonard Shelby, Carrie Ann Moss as Natalie, and Joe Pantoliano as John Edward Teddy Gamble. And for those that don't know who Guy Pearce is, he is, if I remember right, the villain in Iron Man 3. And Carrie Ann Moss and Joe Pantoliano were both in The Matrix, with Carrie Ann Moss being Trinity and Joe Pantoliano being Cypher, but he's probably best known as Ralph Cifaretto from The Sopranos. So, that being said, that's what I have for cast and background. I guess we'll go with likes and dislikes that we normally do. Wow, this is actually being a little bit of a quick podcast.
We're zooming, dude. I've never been here before with Stahlman. I guess I can lead it off. So one of the cool things that I felt about this movie, Stahlman mentioned earlier that the movie kind of happens in reverse, right? One of the cool factors about that is that you're learning with Leonard. With Leonard as your protagonist and you have the short-term memory, you're learning the story in very small chunks. If they were to play the story straightforward from beginning to end in a chronological order, the story would take 10 minutes. I'm not exaggerating that the story would take 10 minutes. The cool part is that because you get it in chunks, and then they go to the previous few minutes to explain what you just saw, but then they also add a piece of confusion. They go to the piece before that adds some confusion while explaining the part that you just saw. The cool part is that you're learning in the same progress as Leonard is. As weird as it is that the story moves in reverse, everything has a part, like the sections are very clearly divided to give you one more piece of information than you had before. You'd think that it would be super counterintuitive to move backwards when normally like the climax of the story comes towards the end. But in this one, like you're building towards the climax that happens at the beginning of the chronological story, and you're moving through it so sectionally, but every piece matters because of the way that it was chunked out. One of the things that I love about Christopher Nolan is that like when he creates a movie or directs a movie, the entire plot line is in vision for every scene of the movie. And I think this one is the most like emphasized version of that, because you can't tell any chunk of this story without knowing what happens at the beginning and at the end. I think that's a really cool feature of this movie, that not only is the whole thing in vision, but the sections that they give you are powerful, meaningful, and you have to give a damn about them. I also thought that it was cool with this movie that no films have really like capitalized on the whole memory loss thing. Every sitcom ever has a trope about, oh man, I have amnesia for this episode and you have to help me jog my memory because I don't know who you are. But there's never been a film that's centered on memory loss like this. I know you have your gripes, Stahlman. Hold it. Since Memento, there's never been something that like the plot line is derivative, completely based around the fact that like this person lost their memory, and only the condition develops the plot. You can interject now.
51st Dates?
I don't think that's a good comparison to Memento at all.
It's not at all.
It's not even in the ballpark.
No, the only thing I can really compare it to is Irreversible, which is about like which does the same thing where the story is told in reverse, which is basically spoiler, actually not really spoiler, but two guys murder this fucking guy for raping their girlfriend and ex-girlfriend. The story is basically told in reverse, whether you're kind of seeing if they got the right person or not.
The exact same movie.
I think it's different. I think it's different only because like in this movie, like
This one it's different because like there's different that Irreversible, which is made later, is a lot more straightforward. While this one uh there's a lot of guessing people's character motivations.
it's a lot of
like
sectional learning in this one, where Irreversible was more straightforward learning in a reverse direction.
yes.
I've never seen it, so.
It sounds weird, but like
I honestly don't. I mean, Irreversible is an alright movie. I don't really recommend it just because the rape scene is rather sickening.
and it's kind of derivative on this one, just more poorly done. I like this one was take something that you know, give you 3 minutes of backstory to explain why you know it, and then add more confusion that needs more backstory. Like everything was a building block on top of everything else, and Irreversible was just, well, what if we hit the reverse button and sent this shit back to Blockbuster, right? Like it's super derivative. This had to be a very difficult film to pull off. Like
yes,
you needed to have the whole thing written before you executed any of it.
I didn't dislike the movie, but I also like some of his other films that I've seen, like Tenet and etc. Like these other movies that I've seen have been really good, and I haven't been as confused as I have with this movie.
Not even with the last one.
Yeah.
No.
I'm gonna come across both of those things. Hold on.
I mean, to be honest, with me, I honestly thought this movie was a lot easier to follow than the other one because, like, since it was like told in reverse as opposed to being told in like, well, this is in this part. How does this?
My thing about it was I enjoyed the movie and I thought it was really well done. After I had watched the entire thing and realized everything about it.
Okay, that's gonna end up in my dislikes, but that is a Nolan trope. I promise I'm crossing that bridge. I have 2 more likes here that I would really like to get to. The first is that the narration of this film is done brilliantly. They're not giving you like an overtone. It's not just a voiceover that's explaining what you're seeing, right? So I think I've mentioned before in this podcast or previous versions of this podcast that Fight Club is my favorite film, right? There's a whole lot of times where the narrator
know that.
There's a lot of times where the narrator speaks over the film to give you context. In a non-linear fashion, sometimes that's super helpful because he's telling you what it is that you don't know so that the movie can watch in a realistic order.
I am Ted's worn out liver.
Ow. First off, it's Jack. You're Jack's worn out liver. I am Jack's unending rage. Anyway, in this one, the narration is not just a voiceover. It's a conversation on the phone that fits into that non-linear storyline where you're hearing bits and pieces of the conversation that explain either what you've just seen or what you're about to see that make that non-linear feel not comfortable, but more bearable. I think that was brilliantly written.
That helps, and also you also hear like his inner thoughts on certain things.
Yeah, but also it pieces the story together in the same way that you're watching it. Because you're watching it basically in reverse, but sectioned out, the voiceovers help carry you to understand that the piece that you're about to watch is the explanation for what you've just watched and why it's an explanation, but it's done with dialogue and not explicit, this explains this. I think like that bit of dialogue is brilliant. A one-sided phone conversation gives you context in the places that you need it most in a casual way, not an explicit way. Flawlessly done. The last thing that really strikes my likes list that I couldn't avoid getting to is that the principles in this movie, like the motivations for characters, admittedly, it does take a long time for you to learn them, but the principles of the characters are very explicitly and profoundly defined. there was at one point where Leonard basically said, I don't care. It doesn't matter what I can remember. Vengeance is more important than my memory of it. And I think it's super profound that you're defining the character's motivations through casual dialogue in a fucking diner where he's like, I don't care if I remember murdering my wife's killer. I just need to know it happened once. That's bigger than me. And at least 3 characters all define their principles that same way, where what I'm doing matters more than how I experience doing it, which I think is super important to the watching of this film, where you're not necessarily watching it in a straightforward line. You're experiencing what's important to the characters in a pattern that defines that importance to them.
Yeah.
Silence is great for podcasts again.
No, I have to say what I really like about is basically one, it's well cast, because like Guy Pearce, Carrie-Anne Moss, and Joe Pantoliano are all 3 really good actors. I really like how you really question on like what are each person's motives for helping out Leonard, or even questioning what Leonard's motivations are as well. Like, to not really spoil anything, you kind of wonder, you honestly question on who you can trust in this movie, including Leonard. And I like how the movie keeps you guessing on that until, like, you finally comes with like the mind fuck on top of a mind fuck on top of a mind fuck at the end, because it's Christopher Nolan. But I mean, that's really all I have to really add on that for like likes. I think it's well done. I like the fact that when Hayley left to like go eat or something, I can't remember what it was. You came back. It's like, okay, what did I miss? We were able to go back. Oh, like, okay, what do you remember seeing? And then we were able to like, say what exactly happened, because this was so sectionalized. I have a feeling if that happened in the last one, we would have no fucking idea how to like piece it together to like explain to what she missed. There was no fucking way. The guy spit out gloves, and we found out why he spits out gloves.
I'm gonna be quite honest. That movie did not have my interest at all. I just kind of was there. But anyway.
Oh, Hayley, anything?
I didn't know if you were still speaking.
Yeah.
No, I'm done.
That's why, like, if you had
No,
more
I'm
to add. Okay. Okay, so I assume we're off the likes now.
I mean, if you have likes, you can hit them. But if you want to transition to dislikes, you can open the floor.
I agree with a lot of the things you guys said about like the way the movie was done and everything. I love movies like this. I do, where they make you question everything, and then there's this big twist at the end. But I can only do so much of them for so long. I can't just watch these types of movies all the time. But for this one, like I said, I was more confused than anything else. The whole backwards way of doing the movie was great and all, but it's the jumping back and forth from this scene, then going to a different scene, then going back to the previous scene, and then going to something else. It just confused me, and I didn't understand anything until the last few minutes of the movie, where it all came together, which is, it's not a bad thing, and I get that's kind of the point. I think this was the most confused I have been with watching a movie, and it frustrated me.
I can agree with that to an extent. Like, I think a whole lot of, like, if you're seeing scene 1 first, then you see scene 2, chronologically, 2 comes before 1. But the end of scene 2 is the beginning of scene 1, so you see how they link together. And then it jumps back to scene 3, which is completely unfamiliar information, but the end of scene 3 is the beginning of scene 2. Had that been consistent, and that was the pattern in the order, I think it would have been easier to follow. There were parts where it was like scene 1, scene 2, 4 transitions to 3, then you see 5, then you see 3, then you see 2, and then we're going to jump to 7, which you've never seen before, to explain 6, which you also haven't seen before. It was an inconsistent kind of jump that created like an unnatural sort of backwards jump.
I will say the phone call portion of it was also confusing to me, but it was the only thing that I put together that entire movie is the story. That is the only thing that I had an idea about that made sense to me. But I was like, no, they're not gonna do this, right? And then. But it is just, I didn't enjoy the confusion at all.
I will say to that point that like a lot of this depends on the climax, which happens at the beginning of the chronological story, right?
Right.
There was a moment in time while watching this movie that the three of us paused and were like, okay, we've seen the climax. We know the twist. Everything's happened. Let's pause and put this together to make sure we all understand it. Which kind of...
And I even was like, is this going to be like Irreversible, where it's like told... Because Ted and I have seen this movie before, but it's been years that we forgot any of it.
I was questioning the things that I had seen before that I remembered because I didn't remember how they fit into the story. Like it was difficult because like so much is dependent on the climax that like, okay, so this is a spoiler. I'm warning you all. At the end of the movie, before the twist, right before the climax, which is the beginning of the story, he ends up killing the guy that he thinks is responsible. That guy's not responsible, but you know immediately that he's not responsible because all three of us voiced our doubt that it was like, oh, it can't be that guy. He's killed the wrong guy, because why would they be building up to him killing this guy if this was the beginning of the story and then it doesn't fucking matter anymore, right? And I think like because so much of it is dependent on that climax, so much is weighing on the beginning of the story that it kind of not only devalues from the stuff that you've already seen and the way that the plot is supposed to develop in your head, but you have to decipher so much and there are so many things that you have to piece together in your own head that the movie doesn't reorganize for you to go, okay, this is the actual series of events to make sure that you understand it. It's, we gave you the climax and we hope you figure it out. Fuck you, I guess.
Well, I mean, throughout the entire movie, they kind of pointed to the fact that regardless, he was gonna kill the wrong guy. That was one of the few things that I could follow throughout this entire movie, is that they were foreshadowing the fact that he is going to kill the wrong person.
Or,
Now,
to your point,
why
did kill the wrong person because you saw it at the beginning.
Well, yeah, but the why was the confusing part to the whole. There was something else I was going to say, but I just can't remember what it was, because it was while you were mentioning something, and I have no idea.
I understand.
I do want to do a spoiler, which is not much of a spoiler if you are familiar with Joe Pantoliano's work. Spoiler, he's a scumbag in this movie, and he's really good at playing a scumbag. Hence why he keeps getting getting casted as a scumbag.
I have to defute you a little bit on that. So one of my other dislikes, this is a great transition as a matter of fact, is, like you mentioned earlier, Stahlman, one of your likes was that you didn't know who to trust or when.
Right. But let me guess, since it's Joe Pantoliano, it's like, I ain't trusting Ralph Cifaretto.
No, it's not even that, right? It's like part of your like, I think, was that it was designed that way, that you were designed to not know who to trust.
Right.
I think my detraction from that is that like they're intentionally building characters for you to dislike, that even when the movie is supposed to build towards, hey, you are supposed to trust this guy, that you can't, because so much of the beginning part of this movie was designed for you to distrust them. So
right.
one of the ways that Leonard keeps track of people in his life with his condition. By the way, Joe has a condition. He can't remember anything in the short term, and he can't create new
Leonard
memories.
has a condition.
Yeah. This was me returning because I have a short term memory. So the idea is that like he takes pictures of things that he knows he's going to need to remember, and as he learns things about them, he writes notes. So Leonard, under Teddy's picture, writes, "Don't trust his lies." It's there throughout most of the film. Because you know that Teddy's a liar from the beginning, that you already don't trust him. They design him into scenes where he's a scumbag and he's like an antagonist to characters that you do trust. You stop trusting those characters. You're like, okay, I can't trust anyone. And then it builds to the fact that you are supposed to trust Teddy, but even in that point, you kind of doubt him anyway. Like there's no attachment to any of these characters. There's nothing that makes you feel like any of them are anything that you can bond to. By the end of the film, I mean, you've been watching for nearly 2 hours and you say, I don't know a thing about you because I know so much conflicting information. I think I know that effect is on purpose, where you're supposed to change your perception of characters. But I also recognize that like because they like did scenes in reverse order chunks, you can't like you have to rely on information you already have as a viewer, and you know that like at the end, yeah, he's not trustworthy, but at the beginning he absolutely is. It makes it so difficult to build attachments or relations to any of these characters, or to know anything that's going on with any specific person, because you just like there's no build to any one person.
I mean, I'd agree on that. It's kind of hard to get attached to people when you already kind of A, know their fate, and then also B, they're basic how they, are portrayed. Basically, everybody's portrayed as like somebody not to trust, that you're just kind of not really attached. They're just kind of like there.
I mean, kind of.
Well, and throughout this movie, you basically adopt Leonard's condition.
See, like, admittedly, that's a thing that I enjoy because you're learning with him. Like, I think it's well written in that fact, but like, it is difficult to like, as a viewer, this is not a movie you can casually watch. This is not something that you can just kind of take with a grain of salt. Like, you have to try to put yourself in Leonard's shoes. And even then, you can't trust Leonard because you can't trust that anything he knows that he knows.
Well, I think my issue is that for me, I ask a lot of questions when it comes to watching things, and I try to figure things out as I'm watching it. And these types of movies are hard for me because I can't, and it frustrates me. Because usually, I'm not horrible at guessing, and I'm not horrible at putting pieces together, but you can't really do that with this movie.
Yeah, it also doesn't
because
help
it's back and forth.
after like every 20 seconds it jumps to another part, and then jumps to another part every 20 seconds. Like you said, it is like you're having Leonard's condition where it's like every 20 seconds you have to like, oh shit, restart.
Like with this movie, like usually with these types of movies, you watch it again after you watch it the first time because, kind of almost required to do that to understand it better. It makes sense more the more you watch it. But I feel like with this one, it's just going to confuse me every time I watch it, which is not exactly intriguing.
I think this is different than most Nolan films in that this one isn't going to give you more insight. Like, I think once you learn the twist, like, and you can rationalize your own plot line from what you've seen, that there isn't really a more understanding. You're only ever going to understand it through your own framework because it moves almost entirely in reverse.
Yeah.
Right. And I guess I can go with, I only have really like one dislike, and it's not really about like this movie. It's something that I'm kind of foreshadowing a little bit. Now, granted, I know that not all of Christopher Nolan's movies are like this, but we have 2 in a row where it's like a non-linear story thing where it leads up to like a mind fuck, and there's like weird, uh due to the non-linearness of it, there's a lot of jumping. And I know Tenet, for what I remember of it, I just remember basically like this big huge like lecture hall or something like that, and then like stuff getting shot up or something like that, and then they're back in the lecture hall again and stuff I or something like that. I couldn't remember because to be honest, I was plastered, so
Yeah,
Not, probably not the best idea.
We're basically going to, when we get to Tenet, we're basically going to expose Stahlman to it for the first time. I love it.
But what I'm saying, if I remember that being kind of convoluted with the timeline and everything that's going on, I hope that it's not going to be the majority of Nolan's films. Otherwise, like, I could see this trope kind of getting very old really quick.
See, well, this is
I know, like with Hayley with the boat at the end of the James Bond movies.
Shut up. We don't need to talk about it. We had how many podcasts talking about this? We don't need to bring it up anymore. Okay? It is dead. It's dead. Let it rest. Okay. Anyway.
Just an example.
The small thing I will say about that, because, it's not that podcast. I was confused by this movie. I was confused by that movie, but I enjoyed that movie a hell of a lot more than I did this one. So I don't think it's going to be quite the same.
Okay.
I will say that, like, part of the Nolan mystique, though, is messing with the timeline. Like, I think everything happens in a non-linear fashion, but it's for a purpose. The one thing that I'll give credit for, like, yes, it's a trope that can be difficult, and it's a trope that can get old. I think, at least for me, the benefit to that is that even if you know that the timeline is going to jump or that you're not watching things in order, it doesn't give it away.
It still gets to you. It doesn't. It still confuses you, and it still, like, blows your mind at the end.
Not to jump ahead 8 podcasts from now, but, like, the plot line to Tenet is the timeline. Like, the purpose is that they're moving forward and backward in time, right? Even though I know that. Even though you know that, it doesn't give anything away to you. You still don't know all of the twists and turns, but I think that's part of the brilliance here, is that very quickly on in this movie, you learn that you're going to move backwards in time, and you still don't know what the climax is at the beginning of the movie, or the beginning of the timeline, the end of the movie.
And we also, like, weren't sure if the entire movie was going to be all in reverse or not. Like, we were still kind of guessing. It's like, is that what's happening? Yeah, that is what's happening.
I still don't know. I'm still confused, even with the answers.
I think this is a natural transition that brings us into ranking movies and how we felt as an overall whole. Not to, steal it and go first again, but I'm going to steal it and go first again. I think.
Check out.
Yeah, it does. I think. Like, this movie was basically like an expanded version of the previous movie with different purpose. I think this movie struggles because I almost think this movie struggles because it was too big, right? That last one, the one that we watched last week, was, again, a very similar, like, we're going to watch the movie in reverse. You're going to learn things in reverse. The climax happens at the beginning of the story. It's just you waiting to uncover it because the story that you're seeing moves backwards. It wasn't
kind of. I mean, it was, like, jumbled.
It wasn't as really, directly backwards. More or less,
yeah.
This one was more directly backwards. That one was a little more jumbled backwards, admittedly. But, like, similar principles, right? I think this one struggles because it's 2 hours of just move backwards, and I'm worried about Leonard. Just move backwards, and I'm worried about Leonard. I think this one was... Stahlman actually asked me to write this sentence down. It was the best way to do the shittiest timeline jump. it was.
No, you said it's like it's the best. I mean, it is not the shittiest timeline jump. I think you said it was like the best way to tell a story really badly.
Yeah. I mean, but that's just it, right? Like the story was good, right? The content of the plot, if you were to write it out in a chronological order, would be the most fantastic 8-minute TikTok you've ever fucking watched in your short-brained life, right? Like, it was genuinely a really good story, but they told it in a really shitty fashion that I don't want to say detracts from the plot, but kind of like the experience was not as good as the content. For me personally, I'm going to put Memento second behind Following. Because we've only got 2 movies. I think Memento is a fantastic film, but I think it's more of a fantastic art piece and like training your brain more than it is an experience. And I think that takes away from this a lot. Like I said, you don't watch it casually. This isn't something that you can stumble on by accident and get involved in. You're not scrolling across your fucking TV clicker and finding this on TBS and going, yeah, Memento, I can jump in anywhere, because no, you fucking can't. I really think that this movie is something that you have to watch with the intent on being uncomfortable, confused, and finding your way to the end that you aren't gonna find anyway. It's like solving a 1,000-piece puzzle, 999 fit together. The last one fucking doesn't. You wasted your money on a puzzle and fuck you for it. Like, it's great if you want to think. It's not good as a movie experience. I'm watching Stahlman grimace as we silence on a podcast again, so please give your thoughts.
Waiting for like if Haley has any overall thoughts on it.
you want me to list these?
I mean, you don't have to, but if you want, like you can say which one you like better.
As much as I don't want to say dislike this movie, but I didn't appreciate it as much as other movies, it's still gonna go above the last movie. Because I just had no interest in the last movie whatsoever. It did not pique my interest at all, and I didn't care for it. And I did enjoy this movie. It's the confusing part that kind of detracts from that.
Yeah, and Ted, by the way, with all that you said, I was about to say, it's like I understand where you're coming from, but I honestly am going to disagree and have Memento over Following, just for the sheer fact that I think it's a little bit easier to follow than Following. No pun intended. Just because like it is more consistent since it is told in reverse. But I can see why that, you know, I can see your reasoning, you know, why you kind of rank it the way it is. I mean, both movies you definitely have to be paid attention, and it's not something to watch casually.
I think in an hour it was easier to digest though than this one was, and I think that's a large portion of why I'm going 1 and 2 here. Like again, Memento's a great movie if you go in knowing you're expecting confusion, hard attention, and a mindfuck, right? Like I'm not even telling you don't watch it. I'm just telling you you have to know what you're getting into before you do it.
And to me, I kind of didn't, but I think just oddly enough, seeing Irreversible, I was kind of in a little bit familiar territory, so therefore, like, I don't know. I think I was a lot less caught off guard on this one than I was with the last one, and that's probably why I'm ranking this higher than, you know, Following.
Absolutely reasonable. I think that probably brings us to the end of our commentary. I think we've probably run out of capital on this movie without describing scene by scene what's gonna fucking happen.
Oh, there's that one scene that's really good that we probably should mention. Like, there is a seamless, like, film editing where
okay. Yes. So, I didn't mention cinematography, and that's usually in my tropes to talk about here. So please allow me. I appreciate
Good day, people of internet. Okay,
I have a condition. There's so I, as a fan of the artwork of cinematography, I think it's really brilliant when things are intentionally left for you to find that you may not notice if you're just passively watching. Again, I'm gonna spoil some things. The part of the plot line that comes with the twist is that one of the characters who's been described but never directly perceived throughout the movie is an allegory to what Leonard is actually going through. There's confusion between what Leonard is going through and what he describes this character as having experienced. Because of his condition, he starts to blend the two together and not be able to discern what is himself versus this other character. There is a scene where you see this other character in a psych ward. He describes him as being in a psych ward as he's telling the story over the phone. He's narrating, and there is it's genuinely 3 frames long. It's so easy to miss it that during the watching of this movie, I saw it, I rewound it to make sure everybody watching with me also experienced, oh fuck, that was brilliant, where they replaced the allegorical character with Leonard. I'm telling you, it was 3 frames long. Like, you are not supposed to see it, but they did it. And that's right before the twist comes that they have replaced the allegorical character with Leonard. It's brilliant. Cinematography, A1. Camera work, cuts, did sound, perfect. Flawless. He nailed it. It's like increasing your budget from 6,000 to 9 million allows you to have the creative freedom to do creatively great things. It's brilliant. Brilliant. I think I've raved enough. Anyway.
One more brilliant.
There
One
was
more.
What?
One more brilliant. I think that's what you need to wrap this up.
It was brilliant.
There you go.
That being said, next episode is going to be
Insomnia, since Stahlman is scrambling for his notes. Yeah, I've been prepared. The next film we're going to review is Insomnia. If you're watching this, I'm probably going to be posting about 3 or 4 weeks behind, depending on the football podcast, and I can't fucking count. So by the time you see this, we will still be watching the movies from the Christopher Nolan filmography in the Discord on Tuesday evenings. Stahlman posts in the community events every single fucking week. You can find it. You can join us on Tuesday nights.
And
check it out.
There's a community role.
True, yeah. You can also react to the community role event on Discord. And then when Stahlman posts and he adds community events, everybody's going to get a ping. So you don't even have to go and look at the Discord. You can just be pinged for it. It's brilliant. Everybody should hop in that stuff. Anyway, for the foreseeable future, we will be watching Christopher Nolan movies in the Discord on Tuesday. You're more than welcome to join us. And you can even ask to be a special guest if you are so inclined. With that, the standard normal stuff, please hop in the CCG Discord for obvious reasons that I've already listed. Plus, if you're interested in any one of us specifically, you can also find us on stream. Thanks to Hayley, our guest, who can be found at twitch.tv, Hayley_bug18. I almost forgot the 18. Stahlman at Traductus, myself at Ted Green Eagles. Please be sure to check out more things that you enjoy. If you have directors or film series that you want to watch in the future, please send recommendations either in the comments or to us via DMs. Thanks for checking this out wherever it is that you're checking this out. And go back and watch the fucking Bond podcast. There's goddamn, what do we do, 28 fucking podcasts? That shit took us more than half a year.
Way too many. Too many.
Way too many.
Avoid a select few.
Moonraker. But yeah, go check those out if you're just interested in us reviewing other movies.
I mean, I will say this: we definitely recommend the Moonraker episode.
No. Anyway. Anyway, thanks for checking.
I say recommend the movie. Just look at the movie poster, and you already. I recommend the movie. It's hilarious.
Anyway, thanks for checking this one out. We appreciate you guys being here, and we will see you guys next week for Insomnia. Have a good one.